Luuk has been revealed. Let's talk about him. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So Luuk has been revealed today. We've gotten his drip marketing, and I am very excited about this, because this means that he is going to be the second character in 3.1. And I say this because Amief was dripped before him, meaning that Amief is coming first. And I'm very happy that we're going to be getting Luuk not too soon after, because I personally am very excited for this guy. He is one of my two most anticipated Lahairoi characters, with the other one being Sigrika. I am very, very interested in this guy. I think this art is absolutely fantastic. It is very, very interesting. I really like the white figures that are walking up the steps. I think that giant white figure of him behind himself where he's sitting looks really interesting. And all around the tree and the golden blood and just everything here looks really, really interesting. So all around, I am excited for this character and I definitely will be pulling for him. But the real intrigue for most people, I believe, comes from one particular thing. He comes after Amief. So what is he going to do? My guess with Amief is that Amief is likely to complete the Toon Break core. This patch Linny released, and we're also going to be getting Mornier in not too long from now, and that is going to cover both the second and third slot teammates for Toon Break. So, inevitably, we need to get a Toon Break DPS. How are they going to handle that? Only time will tell, but at the very least, it is likely that we are going to get some kind of DPS that has something to do with Toon Break. So with that in mind, I believe that Amief is probably going to fulfill that role, especially because she is a central character to Lahairoi's story, at least in my opinion based on the marketing we've seen, and how Kuro seems to be hyping her up. So I believe that she is probably going to be the prime candidate for a Toon Break DPS. However, what exactly is Luuk going to do then? He is coming out after Amief, so what exactly is he going to do, considering that the Toon Break core is going to be complete? It's pretty interesting, because I'm not particularly sure. This could really go any way. They could end up making another support, they could make a sub-DPS, or maybe they make another DPS to compensate for the fact that we haven't had many DPSs recently. It's not really something that we're able to tell right now, at least not clearly. It should be noted that there are two different types of Toon Break. Maybe Amief focuses more on one type of Toon Break, and Luuk could focus more on another type. However, if we go by how Wuthering Waves usually does their patches, it's likely that Luuk is going to end up being a support of some variety, simply because typically speaking, usually Wuthering Waves releases one DPS per patch, and then the second banner tends to be a support of some variety, whether that be a second or third slot teammate. And sometimes they do solo patches, in which they generally prioritize releasing supports. But recently, wuwa has been doing it a bit differently. 2.8 was a solo patch, and we got a supportive character, nothing strange there. However, in 3.0, we got two supportive characters, not a single DPS in sight. And while that doesn't seem like that big of a difference, and it's not been that long since we've gotten a DPS, generally for Wuthering Waves, that's quite weird. Yes, the last time we got a DPS was 2.7 in Galbraina, so I suppose it hasn't been that long, but either way, it's still a little odd that they broke this, simply because this was a pretty reliable banner structure that they had been using for a while. And this is why I usually like to call Kuro games quite unpredictable, because they are. They're simply unpredictable. You cannot guess what their next move is going to be, and you can basically never guess what they're going to do next. Sometimes you can, but for the most part, they're gonna come out swinging with something that you just did not see coming. And I would say that their recent banner scheduling is one of those things. So maybe Luuk could be a DPS, I wouldn't actually rule it out, simply because they've been handling Lahairoi a little bit differently in that aspect. I'm honestly not too sure. Now, it is a rare male character that we're looking at here, and with that being said, I wouldn't be too worried about him not being good, simply because every new 5-star release generally tends to be good, unless they decide to pull a Roshia or a Chisa. Then okay, maybe he's gonna be quite skippable. But generally, the last male character we got, Choyuwen, ended up being a very good character, and even though we have Linny, while his pull value for Galbraina has definitely decreased, his pull value for Fulova has actually increased, and I would say that has some significance. To briefly explain, Linny and Choyuwen is a better combo for Fulova than Cantarella and Roshia. If he's a third slot teammate, I don't necessarily think he's going to be great, just because third slot teammates, unless they're like Mornier or Shorekeeper, just tend to be a bit too niche to be worth the astrites. They're basically only worth it if you're really dedicated to one specific team. The Fulova team is basically the only exception where Choyuwen is genuinely a good, important pull for Fulova, but for the most part, third slot teammates aren't really anything to write home about, and they usually have budget options or more generalist options that you can replace them with. And because we are getting Mornier soon, who's a third slot teammate, I don't think we can expect another third slot teammate anytime soon. They generally release a lot more sparsely than second slots, so I wouldn't expect Luuk to be a third slot, simply because it's a more rare class of character. I'm placing my bets on second slot teammate, and if he's a DPS, I really don't know what type of DPS he'd be, because I would expect something related to Tomb Break, but that's going to be Amieth. At least I believe it's going to be Amieth. So it's a little hard to figure out what to expect from this character, but that's quite exciting. With Amieth, I believe it's pretty straightforward. She is very likely going to have something to do with Tomb Break, and I would be very surprised if that was not an integral part of her kit. Maybe it's not going to be, because like I said earlier, Kuro games very much can just surprise us to something entirely different that we weren't expecting, and that is indeed something that could realistically happen. However, for the most part, I am expecting Amieth to be a pretty predictable unit. I don't know how they're going to handle Tomb Break on her, but I do know that she is probably going to have something to do with it. With Luuk, he is a wild card. He is someone that we are not really that sure of, and at least I myself don't really know what to expect from him, and that is what makes him an exciting unit. As for the unit himself, I mean, look at him. He is a blonde, pretty boy. Obviously, I was going to like this character. The moment that they revealed him, I was like, okay, yep, I can see that this is a character that I'm going to like. I do still like Choyuwen more personally. Choyuwen's my favorite Wuthering Waves character, but I do still really like Luuk. He's really cool in my opinion. I really like his hairstyle. I love the blonde hair, and I love the red eyes. That to me was such a good choice. Really, really good choice from Kuro to give him red eyes. It's absolutely fantastic. His overall outfit looks really interesting, and all around this unit looks really cool in my opinion. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that he has unique veins on his arms. This is something that I noticed from his in-game model too whenever we saw him in this story. I noticed that he has something unique going on with his arm, and seeing that there's gold blood in this splash art and some gold DNA strands and such, I do think that maybe there's going to be something there. Probably something interesting, I don't know what, but that is gonna be for us to find out later on. All around, I am super excited for him. I love his in-game, I love how he acts, and I think this drip marketing is absolutely fantastic. It feels really interesting too. I absolutely love this artwork in general. I just think it looks really interesting. I don't really know what role he's going to play in the story. We'll see what he ends up doing. His drip marketing does talk about how he used to have some kind of dark past, which, to be fair for a gacha game character, that in of itself is not really anything out of the ordinary, but we'll see how they handle it with Luuk in particular. Saying that he has a dark past does intrigue me at the very least, and I am excited to see how they handle him. I'm not really sure where we're going to go with Lahai-Roy's story once we've had the Amieth arc, because I thought they were going to push that to much later. However, it appears as if she's going to be getting her arc in 3.1, and I thought that she was going to be the main crux point of this region, so perhaps we're going to get some crazy developments later on? I don't even know. I really don't know where we're going to be taking the Lahai-Roy story. I am curious about this. But in any case, I am excited to do Luuk's quest. Honestly, regardless of what his kit ends up being, I am definitely going to pull for him. I'm just really excited for him in general. After I get Luuk, I will be waiting for Sigrika, and then I will have my favorite Lahai-Roy units. Goodness, I am excited for this character. I'm also really excited for Amieth too, so all around, 3.1 is looking to be a very exciting patch in general. Ready your Astrites, people. Ready your Astrites. He is the rare male character specimen in Wuthering Waves. We rarely get one of these, so if you're into that, well, here he is, and I would say he looks quite good. They really cooked with this one. I don't necessarily have any personal hopes for his kit because I genuinely cannot make any solid predictions with how Kuro is handling things right now, but I just hope he'll be good, and I hope that he'll have a place on my account. Something that should be noted is that Kuro Games does not launch characters that are unable to be used by themselves on release. So, I do believe that even if he's a sub-DPS, he is at the very least going to have some synergies. Even Cantarella on her launch had a couple of synergies, even if she wasn't best in slot there. And another thing is that if he's a DPS, well then it's highly likely that he's probably going to be able to use Linny, regardless of whether he ends up being a Toon Break character or not, simply because every character can use Linny. That character is stupidly universal. I have talked about it time and time again. So regardless of whatever he ends up being, I think he will have some value. The only point where I would be a little bit worried is if he's a third slot teammate. Because if he's not a universal one, and I just don't think we're going to get another universal one, it took us a long time to get another universal one, then okay, maybe he's not going to be worth all that much. But in any case, I am confident he will be at least good, and I don't really know what he's going to do, because it's kind of unpredictable at this point. But here's hoping we get some more official information soon. I am really, really excited about this particular character. I know that most of the attention is on Amieth, but personally, I prefer this character to Amieth. I do still really like Amieth, though. Hopefully this video is able to tell you about my current thoughts on Luuk. This has been Juice, signing out, and goodness me, Wuthering Waves, thank you so much for making this lovely specimen of a character.